Hi, Barbie!
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
I actually am concerned that the important, genuinely, truly important messages that are in this about respect and gender issues in terms of equality and access, I think that the people who need to hear the message most are going to miss the message. From that point of view, I feel like it's preaching to the choir.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Okay, Kylie, I feel like I've got my Ken-ergy just right for today's podcast.
Okay.
My name is Just Ken Coulson. Just Ken Coulson. What are you laughing at? I've got a PhD in psychology.
So my copy.
You can be whoever you want. That's the whole point of it. You can be you. You can be you. If you have no idea what's just happened to the Happy Families podcast, we went and watched Barbie a couple of days ago.
Well, let's just say you're just Ken.
I'm just Ken instead of Justin. And we are ready to have a big conversation on today's podcast episode about, well, we need to talk about two things because we're not supposed to start here, but we've even kind of got a run sheet because there's so much to talk about and I'm jumping all over the place already. But we need to start with attitude. I did not want to watch the Barbie movie at all. No,
I'm sure that...
I'm nearly 50 years old. I'm a middle-aged man.
Well, I'm pretty sure JR could bring up the words were literally.
We've had this conversation the other night. You said to me, can we please go and watch Barbie? And what was my response?
I'd rather die.
I think that's pretty much what I said. Kill me now. Just no. All right, so I definitely said that last week, and we knew that because we do the Happy Families podcast that it was essential that I watch it, and it's a zeitgeist moment.
Tell everyone why you went and watched the movie.
Because of the podcast. Because I felt like we had an obligation to talk about it on the podcast.
I think that it went a bit further than that.
I don't know why I went and watched the Barbie movie outside of that. Why don't you tell me why?
Craig said you had to.
Oh, okay. Our executive producer, Craig, said, Justin, you have to do it for the podcast.
And what did you say?
I said, I'll see it if you see it. And then you can give me some ideas on what I'm supposed to talk about. I can't believe you're doing this to me. Anyway, we're going to come back to the attitude stuff. Suffice to say that I said I will only watch the Barbie movie. We'll watch it in the morning, on Saturday morning, if I can watch Oppenheimer that night with you. So this episode is going to be a review of Barbie and Oppenheimer, all in one episode, which shouldn't be that hard.
So is it Oppen Barbie?
Oppen Barbie. No, I think they're calling it Barbieheimer online.
Barbieheimer.
You are so funny. So let's get started. Now that the Ken-ergy is established, we need to talk about what has been happening online on my Facebook page, and then we're going to get into the Barbie stuff. But let's just keep the Facebook stuff quick.
If you've been following Justin for some time now and in the Happy Families page, you will have noticed that a few months ago we decided to go on a holiday and
the team took over.
Your
and they said,
team went crazy.
While the boss is away, we're going to play with this Facebook page, and they delighted our, I don't know, nearly 250,000 followers on Facebook with just some of the funniest stuff ever. Anyway, we don't need to go there, but they've done it again. And because I've been so busy traveling the last couple of weeks, there's been so much going on. They've actually done another hashtag while the boss is away. They changed my profile picture on Facebook without my knowledge from being a picture of me to being a picture of Ken.
Oh, you looked pretty hot.
And then they actually wrote, if we don't hear anything in the office about this new profile picture for 1 week, we're going to make an even bigger change. And because I was traveling, because I've had so much going on, I actually didn't see it. So I didn't make a comment about it. And then they changed my profile picture to Barbie. So for the last couple of weeks on Facebook, my profile picture for the Happy Families page has been Barbie. Anyway, they've been having a lot of fun. They've had a picture of you and I on some stairs where it says,
I'm everything.
It says Kylie's everything, and then it's got a picture, and then I'm sitting beside Kylie, and it says I'm just Ken. So anyway, the Facebook page has been going very fun, very funny. The zeitgeist moment has arrived, and now let's before we run out of time, because we've got to talk about Oppenheimer, let's talk about Barbie the movie, please. Oh, before we talk about the movie, 20 seconds if I can. Now, I'm going to sound like a middle-aged grump shouting at clouds, but we got into the movie theatre. We sat down. People were in our seats. This is allocated seating. Everyone's finally...
And they were in our seats because someone else was in their seats.
That's right. So everyone's finally moved over and we got our seats. We've sat down. We've missed the first 2 minutes of the movie because of it. And literally, for the duration of the movie, no, I don't want to sound like I'm a big grump, but for the duration of the movie, I'm talking somewhere between 20 and 30 times these 4 kids that were aged, I reckon, somewhere between 7 and 10.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Ran up and down the stairs and down the corridor, in and out of the movie theatre. And when I say up and down the stairs have got carpet, but they're sort of wooden underneath, and so you can hear the boom, 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 boom. The 4 kids up and down about 30 times. It was so disruptive. And then there was a lady sitting right behind us who laughed at everything, including the not funny things, loudly. And then right in the very big moment, the big moment where the main character gives her big speech about how hard it is to be a woman, there's these 3 people who have walked in and stopped right next to us, and they've realised that they've walked into the middle of a movie and they're in the wrong movie theatre. And it was like, people... Seriously, this is why movies are dying. People just want to sit in their living room and watch it with peace and quiet.
Honestly,
I'm not being a grouch, am I? Like, it was legit ridiculous.
It was legit. I don't usually make any complaints, but I actually went and said something.
You became the Karen. No,
I just acknowledge I'm not asking for anything.
Apologies to every Karen, because I hate that name, but that's the only way that I can say it in shorthand.
But I just said I've never sat in a cinema where there hasn't been regular checks done by an attendant to just make sure everything's going okay. There literally was no one who came in at any point, and these kids just ruled the roost the whole time.
Didn't give us our $50 back. Gee, movies are expensive these days.
Oh,
$25 a head. For crying out loud. Okay, let's talk about it.
That's why I don't go to the movies with you.
Let's talk about it. 2 movies in one day. That was an expensive weekend. Let's not go there now. We need to talk about Oppenheimer. But first, we have to talk about Barbie, unfortunately. So let's dive into it. Barbie.
I'll see you on the Malibu beach.
The big parenting question, so many parents are asking it, is how old? How old do my kids need to be to see this movie? I want to take my kids to see Barbie. How old should they be?
So based on our experience today,
with the 7 to 10-year-olds running in and out because they couldn't be bothered watching the movie,
and a handful of parents who walked out with their 5 and 6-year-olds,
yeah,
and obviously I'm guessing based on the fact that it's dark, I would be suggesting you'd want your kids in high school. In fact, our 15-year-old went last week with her friends, and she came home. She said there was heaps of funny parts in it. She said, but it kind of I got lost in it.
Yes,
she didn't really understand what's going on. I would suggest that a large percentage of people who go would actually miss so much of what...
I feel like I missed a lot.
Yeah. And
I feel like I need to watch it again.
Honestly, I hated film and television. I hated doing, movie reviews and stuff in high school.
Right.
But I can tell you right now, I would love to sit down with my film and television teacher all of 30 years ago and actually dissect this movie. I think this movie would be so much fun to actually sit with somebody who can pull it all to pieces. So
from an age guide from me, I wouldn't be too worried about kids maybe 10 or 11 seeing it at all. They're just not going to understand it.
Yeah.
That's my issue with it. So which is not an issue, right? In terms of a maturity, and the kid's okay to see it. There's no kissing, there's no swearing, although there is a bleeped out swear word towards the end. But it comes and goes very, very quickly. And the innuendo only comes up a couple of times. It's fairly light. And I think most kids would miss most of that sort of stuff. So I just don't think kids younger than about, 24 are going to really want to understand it, or 19. But you could let kids from about, I reckon, 10 or 11 probably sit in the movie and watch it. So with the age out of the way, we've already addressed the fact that I had a pretty lousy attitude going in.
What do you mean by going in?
What do you mean? What do I mean?
I hate going to the movies with you.
Oh, gosh.
You are like a energy sucker. You suck all the energy out of it.
Well, I don't quite understand why you think that I'm sucking any energy out. I don't want to make this about us, though. I had a pretty poor attitude going in, but once I sat down, I thought, I'm going to give this a good crack.
Yes, and every time the lady behind us laughed, I'd look at you thinking, are you going to laugh? And you'd roll your eyes.
Okay, but apart from that, the first, while they're in Barbie Land, I actually didn't like the movie at all. Okay, so...
Can I just say...
There are a couple of spoilers that we're going to share here.
honestly, I think this was such a creative movie, purely on set, and it was amazing. They literally brought Barbie and Barbie World to life on the screen. It was just brilliantly done.
'Cause I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10.
So the first scene, we've got all the Barbies ruling Barbie land. You've got a Barbie president, you've got Barbie Supreme Court, you've got a totally...
Barbie lawyer.
And they have a Barbie girls' night every single night, and the boys aren't invited.
Well, because it's Barbie house,
Well,
Barbie's dream house.
Everything is like that. But the way that it was dealt with, it felt horrible as a guy, and maybe even for you, watching the way they treated Ken.
Oh, definitely.
It was so disrespectful, and I'm pretty sure that was the point of it, right? To show what happens when you rule and you don't realize how good you've got it in a position of power. And then Barbie ends up in the real world, and things start to change. So I'm not going to give a plot overview here or anything like that, but we do need to talk about not just the creativity and the brilliance of the movie, but
Did you say Barbie was brilliant?
it was.
Did you just say Barbie was brilliant?
I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since we saw it. Like it's the kind of movie that if you're willing to think about it, it really gets in your head. Did I agree with everything in it? No, not at all. Were there elements of both their way of viewing the patriarchy and also the things that they said about feminism, or the things the movie seems to be saying about feminism that I think could absolutely be improved? No question. But this is a movie that gets in your head if you let it. And I think that they did an outstandingly good job.
It's interesting because our eldest daughter and her husband went and saw it the other night, and I asked each of them whether they enjoyed it and whether you were going to be cranky when you walked out.
Right.
And our son-in-law Jared said, he's like, look, I kind of get what they're talking about. He said, but yeah, no, it just kind of missed the mark for me. Then I rang my daughter.
Now, before we get there, this is the critical thing. I was going to bring this up right at the end, but this is the critical thing. I actually am concerned that the important, genuinely, truly important messages that are in this about respect and gender issues in terms of equality and access, I think that the people who need to hear the message most are going to miss the message because they either won't watch the movie or they'll walk out and they'll say exactly what you're saying our son-in-law said. And from that point of view, I feel like it's preaching to the choir. I feel like it ticks all the boxes for everyone who already agrees with it, and people who agree with it are going to love it and be super excited. And it might even inspire some parents to work on the conversations that they will have with their kids. But boy, oh boy, I really truly think that a lot of people are going to walk out and be completely unchanged, unfazed by it and not think about it again. And that's the problem. That's the problem with a movie like this.
I think when you think of systemic change, though, it doesn't happen in a moment.
No, of course not.
It's a generational.
Well, it has to be. We need it to be.
Over time. And so if all the good that comes out of this movie is that parents moving forward talk to their kids and help create change for the future, that's a huge step in the right direction.
Sure. Fair enough.
Yes, I'd love it to happen to yesterday, but the reality is it won't.
Mm.
But if we sit in that category and just go, nothing's going to change, then we don't ever try.
Yep. There was something in the movie that I really hated. It made me feel like less of a man. And I'll tell you what it was, but it's very hard for me to say. When Ryan Gosling did that chin up on the chin up bar with his shirt off.
You know that you couldn't see his feet, right?
He's
just standing on a stool.
Oh, I can tell you right now, based on the way that his chest and abdominals moved as he did that chin up, that he was doing a chin up. And it made me feel a little emasculated. I mean, I felt like less of a man in that moment.
It has nothing to do with the fact that you don't have pecs.
Why don't you tell the whole world? I can't believe you just said that. Wow, that was harsh. All right. We do need to talk about Oppenheimer. So let's wrap this conversation up with a couple of things. I'm going to say, first off, I did not feel threatened by the conversations about the patriarchy. I didn't feel threatened by very much other than Ryan Gosling's chin up.
Okay, well, let's just be clear, though. This is really important. You talk about the patriarchy, but the patriarchy isn't men.
No.
The patriarchy is the system that we live under, and it actually, across the board, not only hurts us as women, but it hurts you as men.
Don't disagree for a second.
And I think that the movie really, really depicts that beautifully. They've done just such a magnificent job of acknowledging that it's not one gender that's being hurt here, across the board.
And my final point on not feeling threatened was I did feel sad. I felt really sad because of the way we've built this world. And I think it's all happened, or maybe some of it has been intentional, but mainly it just made me sad because so much of it has been unintentional. This is just the way the world has evolved and built. When Barbie steps into a patriarchal society after having been in Barbie land and feeling so safe all the time, and she starts to encounter the various forms of abusive comments or just the leering, the psychological...
Being treated as an object.
Yeah, the lack of safety that came with the objectification that she experienced. I just... it made me so sad. And I remember just thinking, this is the kind of thing where if we could just get every single boy on the planet to ask a woman if there's ever been a time where she didn't feel safe, when she was just literally walking down the street, I think that would be potentially the beginnings of a whole new revolution of empathy for males, recognizing how the physical strength, but also the psychological space and expectation that men take up impacts women. So to me, that was a really strong illustration. Ultimately, and we do need to wrap this, my take-home message in terms of watching the movie was that while we've talked a lot about patriarchy and gender in this conversation, and I don't consider myself to be a raging feminist, nor do I consider... I'm pretty centrist. I think I'm kind of practical about this sort of stuff. The two things that I got out of it were, number one, when people know who they really are, they do so much better than when they're trying to be something because society expects it of them or the people around them or whatever. And the second thing that I got out of it was there's just such a lack of respect. And if we could just be kinder, if we could just be more respectful, which we will do so much more effectively if we know who we are. I'm Justin. The sense of identity is so important. And again, it comes back to parenting for me, helping kids to be raised with all the good that comes with femininity and all the good that comes from masculinity, but pro-socially oriented and a strong sense of identity. Being our own main character with a pro-social bent to support others. I think it was a surprisingly good movie, given that I went in with such a negative attitude to it, and I'm really glad that I got to see it.
The two things that really stood out for me was this notion that for a long time, I think feminism has been this drive for equal rights, this need to be able to show that as a woman, I'm capable of doing everything that you can do as a man. And yet there's been this really beautiful shift over the years of acknowledging that your maleness and my feminineness...
Go with femininity.
Femininity. They don't detract from each other. When we actually show up, we are equal not because we're trying to prove that we're capable of doing what the other can do. We complement each other.
Yes, the complementarity. Yeah.
And so I loved that. You know, there's this moment when Ken just kind of says, it's always been Barbie and Ken. And for me growing up, there was just this acknowledgement that I'd feel whole once I found my Ken.
And you found your just Ken.
I did.
Instead.
I did. But you don't make me whole.
I can't.
I have to be whole within myself. I have to know who I am and what I want to be and who I will be, not because you add to me, but because I'm able to stand on my own. And there's so much power in that for our girls specifically to know that. And the last thing is at the very end when Barbie's she's lost. She doesn't understand who she is anymore. Is just this acknowledgement, and you said it, but you're the main character in your own story, but you're actually the author of that story. You author it. You decide. No one else can. And there's so much power in that. And if our girls can learn that at such a young age, they don't have to wait till they're 40 to be working it out.
Yeah. Kylie, this is the sort of movie that you watch and you think about for days, hopefully weeks, hopefully months, hopefully even longer afterwards. I rate it. I think that it gives parents loads of opportunities to talk about things with their kids, even if the kids don't see it. We need to talk about Oppenheimer. Wasn't it good to see that?
Yeah, it was great.
Okay, we're out of time. We really hope that you've enjoyed the Happy Families podcast, which was produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, and Craig Bruce is our executive producer. Why are you looking at me like that?
Are you telling me that?
We talked for over 20 minutes about Barbie. We can't talk about Oppenheimer. It was good. If you'd like more information, though, about making your family happier,
We won't tell anyone about the pink burger you had for lunch.
I think we should put that up on our socials to celebrate this podcast and my conversation with you about Barbie. If you want more information about
Who would have thought?
all the Barbie stuff that we've talked about, you can find it on our Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families.
And just remember, you're enough.
You are Ken-ergetic. I should also add the team have changed things up on the page again, and now
Is it Ken and Barbie?
No, it's just Dr. Justin's Mojo Dojo Casa House. That's on the that's the headline banner thingo on the page. Like they're just having. Go and check it out. They've had a lot of fun. It's worth your comments. It's worth your shares. It's actually really fun. We hope you have a great day, and if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. I reckon there's a reason that it's the most popular movie in the world right now.